the worst. It's the worst way to be put in the position. Oh, well.
All right. I'll go. Not yet. Okay. We'll get to you in just a little bit. Okay.
No.
So we got another.
I'll go.
I'm sorry, Jesse. Uggo keeps calling. Uggo, we'll take your call in just a minute.
Uggo needs cool it.
So, okay. So, anything else you want to say before we move on, Jesse?
No, I'm good.
Shut the dog! Miles has never hurt anybody.
No. That's not true.
That motherfucker tries to bite me all the time.
I've been bitten by that dog.
You see? All right, Jesse.
He doesn't trust fear.
Jesse, we're gonna get going. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye, Jesse. All right. So now we're gonna move on. Hi, Uggo. How are you, sir?
I'm good, you know, hanging out watching the show. Good times.
Good. Excellent.
I like that you're talking about the real issues.
Okay.
Yep.
Uggo, do you have a hero that betrayed you somehow?
Well, we talked about earlier. How R. Kelly wrote Up and Grind about little grains.
What?
Wait, this song Bump and Grind?
I shouldn't reference Twitter.
Oh yeah, I asked on Twitter today what are people's favorite non R. Kelly fuck jams. But isn't
You make a good point.
But
And how
didn't
that,
R. Kelly write Bump and Grind? Or is that
Sounds like it, but I couldn't prove it.
that might
It's a little eloquent.
Uggo, that might be R. Kelly.
Grind, then maybe. But...
So you make a good point that Holla Back Girl ain't not a bit about Holla Bread and a girl.
Just to make it clear,
The hero let me
Uggo
down.
was not about challah bread and a girl. Was that?
That is a disappointment.
Jesus Christ, Uggo. Who are you?
Hey, it's just a guy, you know. It's the guy I love bread. I love bread. I mean, who doesn't love bread? It's delicious. You know, hey, you guys got a free toilet water?
No, he drank out of the sink. He didn't drink the toilet water.
Okay, because I was thinking, man, like some people will do anything to get a laugh. It is crazy.
Yeah, some people will stoop to pretty low levels for that. So, where are you from? Where do you live?
I love to go all over the place. Yeah, I love to visit, Seattle's nice. I've been there once.
Are you from Seattle?
It's really hard to say.
I don't feel like
Yeah, this seems like wrong.
it seems like a pretty yes or no question.
Well, you know, people like to ask someone yes or no questions sometimes. I say, no.
You're right.
I say, I love meeting new friends.
So what?
Sometimes they're here, and sometimes they're there. You know, it's like, hey, what are you gonna do?
Okay. So
I'm good, alright?
do you have favorite like breads for occasions? You seem like a man who really knows his bread.
Well, you know, I like to say that every bread is beautiful. I try to go with the flow, kind of like, some people will say, hey, listen, it's Christmas time, you gotta go with something like, like a panettone. And I say, listen, if you got like a rye or a pumpernickel, I'm gonna buy it.
All right. Well, I think we gotta get going. So is there anything?
I'll go right on. But Emma would like to first ask for your help with something, because I'm gonna surprise.
Well, we're not gonna sign anything, but maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you tell us what you want, and we'll decide from there.
Okay. So bear with me. Okay.
Oh, Jenga.
All right. So, yeah.
Hey, be careful! Don't light your face on fire.
I need help, everyone there. If you can help me out with something.
Okay?
Okay?
What is it?
I need you to check bread with me. Bread!
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 Okay, alright, let's see if this works. I need everybody to look under their chair. What? Take a look.
What the?
I'll go! Wait, no. Wait, you're eating? I've got a couple of follow-up questions. One, why,
I'll go.
should it be in a bag or something?
What would you suggest for like a summer solstice barbecue?
No,
Vegan.
Jim, I want answers from
Vegan.
I'll go.
Except for blood.
Why is it not in a bag?
I mean, I can only do so much.
Man, we can only do so much, okay? Fair.
I want to good night for my friends, and this is how it happened.
Okay, well, follow-up question. This seems like quality bread. This isn't Dave's Killer Bread, is it?
What?
Is this Dave's Killer Bread? See, he's not a very good person.
I don't know anything about that.
You're gonna have to face the demons of your heroes sometime.
Are you just who? He's not a good person, right?
So he went to jail for like robbing someplace. That is horrifying. I mean, that's extremely terrifying.
I go. What is going on over there?
If he's not wearing pants.
I'll go.
Okay. You still here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Sometimes, you know what you were saying about people don't respect people's boundaries?
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear that?
Yes.
Crazy.
All right, Argo. We're gonna have to get
We're
going.
gonna hang up.
We're gonna hang up. Thank you so much for calling. You fucking crazy monster. Bye, Argo. Because he's so weird, but
Very scary.
he's very active. He's like the only person that.
I had dreams about him before I ever saw him in real life. I'm pretty sure I created it.